Hello and welcome to the Blues Kind Show. Welcome back after a bit of a break. Today's episode we'll be looking at trade rumours that we've heard. I'll give my opinion on whether or not I think they're worth pursuing or not. Let's just get straight into it. So today's episode is going to cover trade rumours that I've heard, both in the media and then a little bit of scuttlebutt here and thereabouts, but we won't get too deep into any of that. In terms of delistings and reshaping of the list, we're not going to be looking at that today. There's a bunch of players out of contract, but this is not the video for that. For me, it's about doing a bit of a stock take of where the rumour mill is at the minute as we approach my favourite time of year. That's right, the trade period, not the finals. We're not there regularly enough for that to be my favourite time of the year. Trade period it is. I wanted to start with two players that were tossed around in the middle of our losing streak at the beginning of the year, but I don't think that they really warrant all that much time being dedicated to them. First, Big Rick, Paddy Cripps, Captain Carlton, not even wanting to acknowledge this one. I think it's utterly ridiculous, and I thought it was ridiculous at the time. He said he's staying, he's under contract. I don't think we could get enough in return for him to make it worth leaving. Like a good allegory would be Scotty Pendlebury leaving would be devastating for the Pies, because of his, leadership, still performing quite well on the field, but, more the intangible factors. Could you get enough back to replace him? No, you can't. So we're just going to drive straight past this one. We can put it in the not happening basket. This is another guy. I think he's actually had a really, really good season. Just going to call a spade on this one, or at least as I see a spade to be. This is purely driven by media dickheads. Haven't heard it yet in the last few months, but prior to that, during our bad start to the season, you heard the usual, do you trade Harry sort of nonsense. No, you don't. We have one bona fide proper key forward. You do not trade him unless you think you're getting another one. I was very happy to trade Charlie last year because we had Harry. And in addition to that, I think that Harry's role maturing to involve second ruck this year has been excellent for him, and I think it's been excellent for the team. A more team-focused role, I think, has helped free the forward line up. Let's forget the Hawthorn game. It was raining cats and dogs, played a better team, all those things. In the 7 games prior, Harry had a lot to do with our victories, and it wasn't always scoring goals. He's not on for one of his bigger goal tallies this year. However, I think, given the fact that he occupies a number one defender and backs up in the ruck at a very good level, like he's not just there for shits and giggles, I think we can all, 1, 2, 3, piss off Jay Clark. He's not going anywhere. We couldn't possibly get enough for him in order to make it worthwhile. And, the genius idea of trading Harry in a straight swap for Ollie Florent, well, we were able to get Ollie anyway, weren't we? So, cheers, dipstick. This one's definitely going to annoy people, but hey, here we are. We have all heard the soft links to North Melbourne. We know that a lot of other clubs would be keen to look for a fullback. I think the Bulldogs would be top of the list. I think a club like Melbourne would be interested, but see how it all unfolds. But there have been a number of rumours suggesting that Jacob could be on the way out. There was a report earlier today saying that the club has not agitated for a move, but these sorts of moves can be agitated for by either side, and given it's getting some media attention, I sort of figured that I should cover it off. I personally think, I just want to put that caveat there, that the game is moving away from Jacob Weitering's strengths. His best strength has always been his one-on-one defending, particularly against big, bulky forwards the likes. The famous example is his record on Tom Hawkins being as good as it is, but Tom Hawkins isn't in the league anymore, and that is sort of an indication of where the game is going. His one-on-one defense, or one-on-one defense in general, is not as important in the context of the modern game, and in our last 8 weeks, we have seen the benefit of a flexible and interchangeable backline, with roles such as Dirksen playing on Jesse Hogan, or Cowan playing on Jeremy Cameron, Harry Dean playing on Mitch Georgiadis. We've seen the benefit of having guys like, your Tools Bean, Nick Haynes, Dirksen, and Harry Dean, who can all play a version of tall and small. Cowan can play taller than he is. Nick Newman can play taller than he is. It looks like we might get a guy like Buku Karmas at the end of the season. So I'm definitely not saying that Weitering is not good anymore. What I am suggesting is that the thing that he is best at, one-on-one defense and locking up one man down for the whole game, I don't think it's as valuable as it has been in the past. Additionally, and I alluded to this just before, the sorts of guys he's traditionally been really good on, for example, Tom Lynch, Tom Hawkins, for example, like in other words, the super bulky key forwards, they're moving out of the game. If you look at the guys who are leading the Coleman at the minute, I think only Ben King is the only one over 6'7", and I mean, frankly, there's not even a lot of him to begin with. Harry Dean seems to always have a matchup. There are weeks where Weitering does not seem to have a very good matchup. That's not to say that he's bad or not useful, just maybe not as useful as he's been in the first 10 years of his career for us. In addition to that, we have, I think, quite good depth in our key position defensive stocks. To make a take that I don't think is particularly hot, but, see what everyone else thinks, I think in 18 months it's going to be pretty much unanimous that Harry Dean is a better player than Jacob Weitering. Personally, I already think he's knocking on the door, but I'm more than happy to give Harry Dean, into his second or third season in order to, gain that mantle. We also have Harry O'Farrell coming back. We also have Dirksen, who's been, I think, a wonderful pickup, and I think it would be irresponsible if we don't re-sign him for at least another 2 years. Haynes should probably go around again. I think he's had yet another good season for us. Assuming we don't move on someone like Brody Kemp, I think there's a good chance he gets redeployed into the backline next year. All whispers also indicate we're getting Buku Karmas, and I think that adequate replacements like Jordan Butts from the Crows could also be found in order to save a little bit of money but still get quite good returns. I'm not saying that any of these guys, apart from Harry Dean, will eclipse Jacob Weitering. What I am saying is that for their output per dollar value or value in terms of picks, I think we can do a little bit better. For me, it's about accessing the value on the list. Even though he's had, frankly, an average season, Weiters, so far, not all of it's his fault, getting injured in State of Origin, his value, I think, would still be really, really high. However, if he has a bad season in 2027, instead of his value being very good, it could very quickly careen off a cliff. For example, Essendon with Zach Merritt, where they could have got 3 first-round picks last year, they thumbed their nose at it, and now maybe 1 in a second, something, two at best. All right. I think the sort of thing that you would be able to get for Jacob Weitering is somewhere between the Barras trade, which I believe was a first, a second, and a third, and the Charlie Curnow trade, which was 3 firsts and a role player. I would put his value at 2 first-round picks and a role player from whomever the club happens to be. That's sort of my starting point for Weiters. If you can get that much and get all of his money off the books, you don't have to pay for any of it, which I don't think you would need to, because he's not, he's not a dud asset like players that we've seen that arrangement occur for in the past. I think you should do the trade. If you can't get 2 first-round picks and a decent enough role player, you hold on to him. My ideal pack might look something like, 2 first rounds and then Griffin Logue or Whitlock from North Melbourne. They don't, or Cooper Trembath. Not saying the player is steak knives, and if they happen to fill a role that we need, that would be excellent. To be clear, this next discussion is only about Ollie. I just wanted to include Elijah because I thought it was a nice photo of, a bit of brotherly love. This is also whispers only, as opposed to the first ones where I'm sure we've all heard them in the media. The Ollie Hollands stuff, this is a little bit of a whisper, a little bit of scuttlebutt, around the traps. But, I don't think I'm the only one who's heard that Ollie Hollands could potentially be a little bit disenfranchised with the club. I am not going to be pretending to be breaking any news. I have heard it from a handful of people. I know other people independently have as well. So who knows how true it is, but I think it is worth discussing, given I've seen other people making videos about Ollie Hollands specifically. Basically, he might be disenfranchised because of what went down with Elijah earlier in the season. To me, completely fine and fair. To be really blunt, I came into this season thinking Ollie Hollands was the sort of guy that could, really rise up our depth chart, add to his top 10 finish in the BNF last year and become a really well-established player at the club. Through injury and various other bits, that has not seemingly come to pass. I thought he was one of the worst players on the ground against Hawthorn, if not the worst. And I know it's only one game, but, you'd like to see more. Given he's the same draft as Lockie Cowan and how he seems to be making these tremendous strides at this stage of his career, Ollie Hollands is someone I would ultimately like to see more out of. Adam Chera is someone who's not really suited to playing on a wing, but he's moved to that position and thrived. Blake Acres, who, if you go back to any of my other videos, there is a lot of proof of me being a Blake Acres hater, and I don't think I could really fight the charges just quietly. He came back in during the win streak and provided, a good fulfillment of the role in the wing. I say that to say, if these guys who are older, more senior than Ollie Hollands have moved into his position and succeeded, that doesn't scream a lot of good things for Ollie Hollands himself. Additionally, Hayward's played on a wing this year and done quite well. I think Cottrell's done well on a wing when he's played there. Frankie has played there. I like seeing him more in the forward line, but the point is our depth there is not as desperate as it was at the start of the year. And so if he is truly a bit disenfranchised, I think it's okay to move him on. None of this is to say that I don't think he could improve, and so he wouldn't potentially be worth keeping around. But if someone came to us with a pick in, say, the top 25, I think I'd take it. Alternatively, we have been linked to a few guys that I'm going to cover off in a second. He might be a really good trade chip, given he seems to be a really high character guy, excellent runner, and has other AFL quality traits, but just might not be the right fit for us. To be clear, this is predicated on the rumours being true. So if it turns out that he's not disgruntled and he's happy to stay, great. Come back next season, work on your game, and we got no issues. Otherwise, I think it is worth, potentially moving on, given he still has good value. Now that we've dealt with the players going out, I want to jump over to 6 players that we have been linked to in the public space. So Brian Myers, as reported by Tom Morris yesterday, we have been linked. I have to declare my bias. I love Brian Myers. He's one of my favourite players. So obviously you can guess where I'm going with this. At 27 years old, having played 160 games, although only 9 this season, and being signed through to 2028, I think he is definitely the sort of guy that we should try to attract. I think, ironically, Jack Martin has probably taken his spot, which I don't think is a slight on Brian. When Jack is injury-free, he's a very good player, as we saw in 2023. But Jack Martin was obviously not injury-free very regularly, so off you go. But Brian does have a very good history with injuries. I think he is a very good pickup to play half forward or wing for us. His kicking is excellent. Despite, shall we say, his artistic style, it is very effective. Previously also been one of the better players for goal assists in the competition. To me, he is the sort of guy that makes other forwards around him a lot better, because it is so much easier to mark a clean ball kicked into your path than just the chaos ball going in. He can find targets, he finds soft spots in defensive zones. I think he could be really excellent. In addition to that, I think given he's been out of their team for a lot of this season, you could get this done probably for a second round pick, because Geelong would probably be weighing up whether they want to keep his contract. I don't think he'd be on a hell of a lot. It's only a 3-year deal, and Geelong does a very good job of keeping their guys under a pay scale. However, with that said, I do think that they would still be probably inclined to want to move him. And the way you get it done, maybe a second round pick, I think, is all it would take. But this is the guy that, when I mentioned Ollie Hollands, I think this might be the swap. Ollie Hollands strikes me as the sort of guy that could go to Geelong, fit into their system, excellent runner, all of those good things. They would get a lot out of him, while Brian Myers, a veteran player in a position of need, could come to us and do quite a good job. Additionally, we move on to Buku Karmas, although I will be obnoxiously referring to him as Blue Koo on and off over the next couple of months. After my devastation last season, where the Bulldogs decided not to take our very generous offer of a future third round pick for a guy who's gone on to play, I think, every game for them this year, it looks like he's going to be leaving the kennel at the end of the year, very likely for Carlton. He is an unrestricted free agent, so we don't need to trade anything for him. And because he's unrestricted, unlike restricted free agents where you need to throw the farm at them so that their incumbent club can't match the offer, don't have to do that for an unrestricted free agent. So if we offer him reasonable money, we don't have to offer him top of the market. You know, a 3 to 4 year deal, I would imagine worth something like 6 to 800 grand a year, you can probably get it done. For those who think that sounds like a large number, fair enough. But the league average per season for a player is 550 grand. So if you got him on 6 to 800, it's not that much over the league average. And he plays a position where you want to have depth. He's very flexible, can play tall and small. He actually kept Flying Ryan to 0 goals after Flying Ryan had kicked 11 goals in 2 weeks. So he adds versatility to a backline that is thriving with versatility as one of its main strengths. I'm a massive yes on this one. Joel Amati and Mitch Lewis I'll handle together, given that they're a year apart in terms of age, being 27 and 28 respectively, later this season. And both have had strong seasons. Joel is on pace for over 40 goals, playing as a second banana, while Mitch Lewis is on target for about 35, given the same sort of role, but a forward line with more mouths to feed than what Sydney has. To be clear, to me, both would be coming in as a de facto number one. What I mean by that is that Harry is still our number one forward, but he's going to back up in the ruck. So you need someone who's able to play a bit of time as number one when Harry's either off the ground or in the ruck doing other things. So I think bringing either of these guys in, we've seen them both be able to hold a forward line down, maybe not for long stretches of time, but for periods throughout a game or for a couple of weeks in a row. So I think both of them could come in, play number two while Harry's around, and then have to step up a little bit in terms of their opponent when Harry's either off the ground or in the ruck. I think both guys would be able to succeed in this role. I would personally prefer Joel Amati. He's a year younger for all that's worth, but he has a much less significant injury history. He would probably require a 5-year deal to get done. I believe that's what Sydney have gone up to, but I don't think it's 5 years at over $1 million, especially for them, given they've already got to pay Charlie. However, he is less injury prone. He is a little bit more athletic than Mitch Lewis, but I think honestly getting either of these guys would be perfect for me. I think it also allows someone like Mitch McGovern to stay in his role as a third tall, which he's done really, really well this year. The other sort of names linked are guys like Kel Shadir. You'd have to trade for him because he's like, a third-year player or something. I think it's a little bit more straightforward if we can try to get one of these guys as a free agent. Sam Switkovsky. Had to say that name slowly because I always get it back to front. This guy, I feel like, has been linked to us about 5 times over the course of his career, and frankly, I don't really get it. He's super fast, but often injured, not a prolific goal scorer. He's only kicked 76 goals through his 126 games. He's also never kicked more than 16 goals in a season, and to give you a tip, that was like 4 years ago. So I'm not really sure why we're always linked, like maybe he's got a mate at the club or something, but personally, I'm not very interested. If he came super cheap, I don't think I'd really mind one way or the other, but I don't see the point. This isn't the sort of guy that you should make a big play for, so if he comes, I'm hoping it's a 2-year deal at the absolute most. If you want a fast guy who can apply pressure in the forward line, you could have held on to Will White for a lot less. But obviously, I'm also really happy with how, say, Taylor Burns going this year in that sort of role. So for me, I don't really see the upside. He's a veteran player who's never had great output. I'd give him a miss. And the last one that we have been linked to is Bailey Humphrey. We are one of 3 clubs linked to him, but honestly, I'm not a massive fan. The other 2 clubs, of course, being Hawthorn and Melbourne. Bailey has frankly had a terrible season so far. Now, understandable if he wanted to leave at the end of last year, didn't get his wish, and now he's not as maybe happy as he could have otherwise been. He might be struggling with homesickness. He's a young guy. All those things are pretty fair enough. The point is his output's not there, though. And the idea that if you move him, his output will definitely get better is speculative. In addition to that, I think people have maybe pumped him up just a bit too much. Everyone makes the comparison to Dustin Martin. And it's only the start of his career, fine, but Dusty was a very rough product early in his career, famously struggled to run out games, didn't have the greatest tank of all time. But I thought I'd just do a really lazy comparison just to sort of prove my own point. In Dusty's second season, he kicked 33 goals and averaged about 22 touches a game. So again, 22 touches a game, 33 goals for the season. That was his second year. A year later for Bailey, in his third season, which was his best season to date, he kicked 25 goals, 25 compared to 33, and he averaged in the teens for disposals. So, you know, I don't really see the super high end that other people seem to see. That doesn't mean that I'm right. I could very well be wrong. But I don't see the superstar in the making that everyone else does. Not saying he can't be really good. Maybe I'll be wrong, all of those things. I would not be going for a guy where you're going to need to trade at least a good first-round pick, maybe 2 first-round picks in order to get him. I'd rather preserve our draft hand for Cody. So unless they're happy with our picks from the Tasmania compromise draft, I'd be giving this one a miss. In addition to that, I think we got a guy that plays that sort of half-forward midfield role better than him from the Suns last year, and his name's Ben Ainsworth. So me, I'd probably give it a miss. However, the most fun part of any trade period to me is propagating some funky ideas. So funky idea number 1 is Jamara Ugle-Hagan. Huge caveat, I got no idea what he got into in his last season at the Bulldogs extracurricularly. However, I don't really care. If it's not so bad that he's allowed to still stay in the AFL, I'm assuming it's stuff that he can work on, and I think we're probably a strong enough club, given how tight the group is, maybe not strong enough in terms of performance, but strong enough in terms of pastoral care to be able to take him on. I think he'd be an excellent second foil to Harry. Harry would likely still take the best key defender, which would give Jamara a big chop out, but Jamara is so skilled. In terms of the ways that he scores goals with comparison to Harry, Harry's main avenue to goal is taking marks and kicking goals. Jamara snaps, he's good at ground level, super athletic. I think, if you're not going to get a Joel Amadi or whomever else, he would not be a horrible low-cost option on the proviso that his off-field stuff is a lot better than it used to be. The last name is Rowan Marshall. I wanted this guy so badly last year when it turned out they were about to replace him with a worse player, but on twice as much coin. But obviously he nominated Geelong. Geelong shat the bed, couldn't get the deal done, is what it is. Apparently he wants out again. I would gladly take him. He's 30 years old, which is obviously a little bit longer in the tooth, but ruckmen do tend to play a bit longer. His injury history is really good, especially for a ruckman, and while they'd probably want a first-round pick, if they would accept one of our first-round picks from 2027, I don't hate that deal. If it has to be 2026 draft picks, though, it would probably be a second that I'd want to use. Unsure if Stephen Silvani would want to relent, because God knows there's nothing he likes more than holding up trades for no good reason, but if Rowan Marshall decides he doesn't want to go down to the Cattery and he'd rather, just move slightly up the road to the old Dark Navies, I would gladly have him. I think that would clarify the ruck position for the next 2 to 3 years, which would be money well spent. The last thing I want to touch on is the big names that happen to be out there. Guys like Zach Butters, who we were linked to through the trade period last year, not as much this year. Zach Bailey, who we've been linked to previously. Really, I'm referring to anyone that would require 2 or more first-round picks to get done. Personally, I am completely off wanting that sort of player at our club. I don't think it's congruent with the stage of our list development. We are not in a position to make all-in sort of moves. Frankly, they very rarely pay off. The only example that's screaming in my head where a club has paid 2 or more first-round picks and it has worked out pretty quickly is Jeremy Cameron at the Cats, and frankly, he's the best key forward of his generation. I'm counting Buddy in the generation before him. They also did it on the back of having fleeced the Eagles in the trade for Tim Kelly. So they had a bunch of picks just sitting around doing nothing. We are not in that position. We have 2 first-round picks this year. We need them for Cody Walker. We got 2 next year. We might need to move them in order to get other father-sons who'll be coming in 2028. Point is, we have managed to reshape our list really well. And as a result, I'd rather that we don't just go out and automatically recommit that salary cap space to other people. I'd rather we keep picks for Cody, and the money that we do have can be used to re-sign all of our good players under the age of 23, of which there seems to be a lot. That's going to do it all for today. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe. If you have any disagreements or you agree and you want to let us know, please feel free to leave it in the comments or shoot me an email at blueskindshow@gmail.com. For those who have stayed to the end, I do just want to thank those who reached out to me during the hiatus. Honestly, not certain how regularly I'm going to do videos or what the go is yet, but you know, I felt motivated to come back. So I just want to say those messages that I did receive really did make my day on those particular days. So thank you, everyone. And as always, go Blues!